The way I want to introduce today, you may or may not have heard me speak on a regular weekly basis on a program, Talk Show, connected with the University of Acadia. And one of the things that I've been reminded as I've been going through this information is A, there's too much of it. B, what about the basics and getting a sense of how everything fits together? By that I mean getting a framework. It's fine to talk about the general executor, it's fine to talk about documents, it's fine to talk about conduct in court or responses or any kind of remedy, but I feel one of the things that has been missing is what we're about to go through now, a framework where you can maybe hopefully put some context in on some of the things you've heard from me and other things you know. So the first session is Western Roman law. So first thing I want to say is nothing you're going to hear is legal advice. And the reason it's not legal advice is what these words mean when we hear the words attorney, barrister, in a moment, lawyer, and the art. I want to start here because frequently you hear when people talk on radio or they speak about the law, they say, oh, it's not legal advice. Let's start, because this is actually very interesting as to the origin of these words. Attorney. The word attorney, attornment, from the 16th century, combined with the Latin word at, to, and torno, turn, round off, means to consent implicitly or explicitly to a transfer of right. In other words, the attorney is there to prove that you have given up your rights. So I'm definitely not here to get you to give up your rights. I'm not an attorney. What about a barrister? The word barrister is from the late 16th century, combined with the Latin word barro, which means dunce, incompetent, sto or stare, to stand firm, to be in position. So barrister means literally to stand, represent a dunce or an incompetent. Well, I'm not here to stand before you and accuse any of you of being dunce or incompetent, so I'm certainly not a barrister. Am I a lawyer? Well, the word lawyer is from the 16th century, combining the Latin word la or lares, customary law, and luro, lurare, to swear, take an oath, to conspire, meaning literally one who has sworn an oath to customary law of the private guild. In other words, sworn an oath to lie. That's a lawyer. A lawyer is one who has sworn an oath to lie, a pathological liar. That's their sworn oath. Well, I'm not here to be a pathological liar. I'm certainly not a lawyer. And just in case there's any misunderstanding, the art of law. Am I practicing law? In the 13th century in Florence, the Medici organised merchants into private systems of 5 major guilds called the Arti Medianae and 7 minor guilds called the Arti Minor, occult guilds called the Arti, hence the art of law. Well, I'm not here to practice occult before you, and I certainly don't belong to an occult guild. So I'm certainly not practicing the art or claiming to practice the art. And last one, if you have a legal problem, find a competent advocate, definitely not an attorney, lawyer, or barrister, okay? This is not about getting around the law, and I want to step on this one for a moment too. Today is about expressing knowledge on the rule of law, equity of law, and fairness of law. It's your choice to claim the status, if you suffer a problem, to choose to remain to be in the role of victim, which they want you to be, or to be accountable and competent for your own actions. And I say that because, again, one of the many things that you hear, people almost selling remedy, buy my remedy, as if there is no consequence for where you are. You'll find in a moment it's actually about who we are first, what we are first, that makes everything we'll talk about make sense. Thanks, Anastasia. So what is competence? You may have heard me say this word over and over again on the talk shows. And competence, I'm sorry for the amount of words. You can tell it's Ucadia by the amount of words. Competence is a fictional concept of being fit, proper, and qualified to produce and argue reason through knowledge and skill of law, logic and rhetoric against arguments. So competence is about knowing information and knowing how to use it. those two key things, knowing something and knowing how to use it. We say, and these are references to canon, that's actually canon 2600 of the canon law of Eucadia. By the way, these are handouts that you'll get at the end, so you don't have to, if you don't want to, you don't have to write this, you'll get them in handouts as slides. Your divine person or soul is always competent. We always say this, If your soul, your essence, and people have different words for it, so I'm not going to label it as one particular label, but if that thing which is divine of you is from the greater divine, how could it be incompetent? How could it be? Can't be. So we always say that your soul, your spirit, that essence of you, that immortal part of you can't be incompetent. However, your true person, your flesh and mind, may or may not be incompetent. I've been tricked, you might have been tricked, you might have believed someone, you might have felt the angst when someone you believed was trustworthy turned out to be untrustworthy. It's part of life. And so competence in terms of flesh and mind can be tricked. And in fact, in essence, that is the key to the whole Roman system. It's about tricking our minds. It's about convincing us we're less. It's about convincing us that we are mortal animals and that we have no immortality, no divine spark. So, a key competency is knowing who and what you are. We forget this when we talk about law. We forget this when we're going to the court, that the court, in essence, is claiming its ultimate authority as ecclesiastical, spiritual. So far from this being irrelevant to a parking fine or a criminal case or a threat of jail or the threat of loss of your home, it is square and centre the essential thing that we have to remind ourselves. Knowing who and what you are. You're a spiritual being possessing a unique mind expressed in flesh. You're tripartite. You are already a tribunal. And we need to remember these things. You're not simply an animal, a member of the Homo sapiens species. You have a mind and therefore the ability to discern logic, illogic, what is true and what is false. Thanks, Anastasia. A key competency. What is the universe? The oldest civilizations in the world knew that life is a dream. We are speaking today on a land where the custodians of this land, as central to their culture for 70,000 years, knew that not only was life is a dream, but that we could connect to that. We could connect to that dream, and that the knowledge of how to connect and how to respect that connection was intrinsic to their culture. That is the story of the land of Australia. The story of Dreamtime, Barumban. The universe is amoral, not immoral, amoral, meaning it's neither good nor bad. The universe as a whole, the divine creator as a whole. However, the universe will react in favour of free will and resist tyranny. This is an extremely important issue because I assure you the people who architected the world today at the top of the tree, not the trolls, not the mid-ranks, not the bankers who are out of control, but the people who invented the world, the matrix as we know it today, very much understand this principle. And it's why they have survived in power for so long. You'll see in a moment how. You're part of the unique collective awareness, divine creator, and the personification of the divine creator. You are the divine creator. You are the personification of the divine creator. I was asked an excellent question before we started today. The question, roughly, and I want to paraphrase it, was, if I know who I am, if I know not what I am, if I am sovereign, if I am the sovereign of my own domain, then why do I need to go through this whole notice process with the Roman cult? The answer is you don't. If you know who you are, you know what you are, in essence, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just know that the system, if it doesn't know, is designed to grind on because they have such perversions like silence is consent. It was never a true law, something they invented, silence is consent. Ridiculous, but that's what they use. Testing competency. Now this is where we start to switch between knowing what we are and how the system justifies the way it operates. Again, an essential understanding of Roman law. The self-justification of these people. Ridiculous, appalling, but they have a way of doing it. And it is, if you worship in ignorance or ignore perspective, then you declare yourself incompetent. Hence, they place some of their most important signs to us in plain sight. Would you agree with that? Okay. Have you seen this before? Sure. Right. Okay. Well, that is the oculus omni. The oculus omni, the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. Not Lucifer as a spirit. That's the misdirection. It's a symbol of the Emperor of Rome in 71 CE to 117 CE. It's a symbol now of the Jesuit Superior General as Lucifer, Lord God of Earth from 1534. That's his symbol. That's the head honcho. Okay? And so if you're a 33-degree Mason, you would have an understanding of all these different levels, but even that information would be excluded from you. So it's testing competency. If you worship Lucifer or if you worship Lord God, if you go and read the original Greek or the original Latin from which they claim to have created the King James Bible, in the opening sections of the Bible, they do not use the word God or Lord God. That's the English translation. They use words like Elohim, El Sabah, different words that do not translate to Lord God. It means something entirely different. Elohim ultimately means a collection of spirit, or as the Sumerians would say, the Anunnaki, a group, a collective rather than a one. When we speak of divine creator, we're speaking of something far greater than just a God or a Lord God. If you worship something as a Lord God, and knowing what this ultimately is, over here, the oculus omni, then you're actually worshipping a man or men as gods. Would that put you in dishonour with the divine, do you think? If you worship other beings as gods rather than worship the true creator, would that put you in dishonour? Yes. Well, that's what they want to happen. They're testing your competency. And 99.99% of the world fail that test. That's exactly what they want, because it means only they technically are in honour. It's perverse, it's bizarre, it's brilliant. That's why they've been in power for so long. We're going to go through and at the end of the last half hour we'll answer questions, so we'll keep going. Money and coin has always been minted in honour of Lucifer from the first millennium BCE, because lucky fear, from which we get Loki. Have you heard the word Loki, the god? Yeah, Loki, Lug. That's all lucky fear. It was a Celtic god of good fortune, gold and skill. Always. Money has always been dedicated to lucky fear. And there they put it in plain sight. They put these symbols in plain sight.